Today it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. It's another Monday, a soggy Monday, and I've got Edwin with me. I hope he's not too soggy. Hey Edwin, how are you doing?
Drifting apart, Martin. We're drifting apart, and that's not metaphorically speaking, because of all the rain. I think overall, in general, the world seems to be polarizing in all sorts of the directions. All I can put it to is this year's yin just doesn't seem to have a yang.
No, indeed. Well, yeah, wherever you look, things are falling apart. People being deplatformed. More censoring of information, more slices of information going missing, and the government, of course, just reaching further and further into our lives.
Oh, look, definitely, Martin. You just don't know what voice to listen to anymore. Up in the mountains, we hear all sorts of voices in the middle of the night. Sometimes I think it's a Yowie, it's a Bigfoot. Whatever you want to call it, but there's voices reaching out. But look, there's a lot of misinformation, as you're saying. There's and the government certainly reaching deeper into our wallets, as well as into our lives, in everything else. So, and then you get stories like people buying penthouses in the metaverse, Martin. What the hell is that all about?
Well, I suppose if you can't afford to buy in the real world, you can buy a digital alternative. I don't think it's going to keep the rain off particularly well, though.
Well, look, I'm just sort of thinking. I just hope that they did a building and pest report, and they got a good strata inspector to have a look at the report itself. It's just one of those things. I know. I'm just putting it out there, Martin. Just putting it out there. If you're going to spend this sort of dollars out in the metaverse, you might as well get the professionals to look at the strata reports and the condition. Is the building going to sink? Is it going to disappear into the galaxy? Is it going to be absorbed by a black hole? Who knows? You got to do this research.
Well, what happens when the power goes off is my question.
That's right. And then you got, we had issues with tennis, tennis being a dangerous sport. And now they're telling us, don't touch the football. Just, 50% of the AFL players are micronized. They've got the crong and what's going to happen? They're going to be digitalized. I'm being told. So I guess they're going to be moving into that. I sort of, imagine it the way that they do things over in China through the WeChat platform, where they get a red signal, a green signal, or an orange signal as to determining whether or not there's a hot spot, or they have to return home and isolate and so what and whatnot. But it's really moving forward to this whole thing that we were talking earlier about the government reaching further and further into our lives and basically going to be controlling our lives.
Well, that's right.
Next thing you know, there's going to be conspiracy theories about microchips being embedded in our brains, or in our wrists.
Well, the fact is, of course, that there is a serious intent now to roll out a digital currency, right? A few months ago, the RBA was saying, well, we probably won't do a retail digital currency here in Australia. Then the Treasury came out, the government came out with a report. Treasury is now looking at it. And the RBA is now saying, well, maybe we need a digital currency. In the US, the Federal Reserve put out a report a couple of weeks ago saying digital currency is what we have to think about now. Now, there's a reason for that, and that is because, of course, if you're in digital currency land, you've got much more control of all the levers. And that gives you much more ability to, for example, to take interest rates lower, or to have the value decaying over time. If you don't spend your dollars, they'll be worth less tomorrow than the day after. I mean, there are so many things that all come together, and so many people, I think, once again, are sleepwalking into this because, as you say, they want to reach further and further into the way we do things and just remove more and more of our civil liberties, frankly.
Oh, look, I think you're going to get credits as well, Martin. if you attend auctions and create the numbers at the open house inspections and at the Saturday auctions, I'm sure you're going to get credits on your digital scorecard as well. What do you think? I mean, I'm just putting it out there.
Well, could be. And it's interesting. Did you see that thing the other day? I noticed that it was on Twitter and a few other platforms where somebody was saying, well, that the tenants have to basically provide references when they're looking for a property. Well, what about landlords providing references, right? Turn the tables.
Yeah, look, I had a friend and myself, I think it was 3 years ago, we started looking at launching a small platform, a small app to get people to note down what they thought about their rental properties. For obvious reasons, obviously, people are too scared that they're going to get deplatformed, that they're going to get shunned upon when they go and make applications if they find themselves on this on our app. So we ditched that. But look, it's something that obviously people are thinking about, but it just doesn't have any legs, because you've got to have the participation of the tenants. And at this point in time, when the government policies are so backwards and so retrospective, and they're not providing affordable and suitable housing, well, the alternative is for private housing. And obviously, if potential agents, real estate agents, and landlords see your name on that on that app, obviously they're going to push you by the side. And when homes, as we're looking at now, homes are in high demand for renters, obviously if your name would appear on that, you're going to get ditched. Your application is not going to be looked at. Now, we spoke about something similar that property managers were doing last year, if you recall, Martin, with regards to that were ditching applications of people that were in particular industries, and only accepting applications, obviously not up front. It was behind the scenes stuff, and really being discriminatory against people that were in the hospitality or the retail industry, because they knew that they were going to face issues with regards to the pandemic. So it's a big can of worms, and the government unfortunately hasn't really. Not that he can't. I believe that they just don't want to, or haven't made the time to look at policing and to look at putting better rental measures in place for the Aussies.
Well, the point is, it's such an unequal relationship, isn't it? Landlord to tenant, right? And whatever anybody says about regulations coming in to allow people to have pets and things, and other measures that have been taken to perhaps protect tenants' rights a little bit, it's still very, very unequal, particularly in the part of the journey when you're trying to find somewhere, right? If there's a lot of people all in a queue, all looking at the same property, and you as a landlord or your agent working for you as a landlord, they're going to make quick decisions based on a whole bunch of things, many of which, frankly, would probably, in the cold light of day, appear to be discriminatory.
Oh, that's right. And there are unwritten rules that agencies have. Look, as I said, we ran a property management team for almost 20 years, and I knew the ins and outs and what people would do and what they didn't do. I made it a personal preference or a choice with the agencies that I managed, the property management teams that I managed, and I didn't, we didn't discriminate against those that wanted to have pets. And this is before the legislation changed in residential strata complexes. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And I kept on saying, and I spoke out. I was very vocal with regards to that the side of the tenancy regulations, when a lot of it was stacked up against the tenants, and very little was looked at or into the way property managers handled tenancies or handled the properties. And what I always said it comes back to is, if you've got a slack property management team, you're obviously you're not going to put in place a guide or a system to that both parties can work together. And as a matter of fact, the property manager is meant to be the conduit between the tenant and the landlord. But unfortunately, they're not they don't become conduits, they become stumbling blocks, and and create all sorts of issues. And at the end of the day, it's easy for them to blame the tenant. I mean, we could talk till the cows come home, Martin, with regards to these issues, because they're very close to my heart. And I found that it's very, very lopsided, and a lot more needs to be done to address all these issues.
Absolutely. Well, we won't spend more time waiting for the cows to come home, but what we will talk about is colours, right? And particularly colours around Sydney Council and Chinatown, because there's some interesting stuff going on there as well.
Well, there's certainly, look, it's very ominous, isn't it? It's very ominous, suspicious. Is it a sign of what's to come for Sydney in 2022? The colours that they've chosen to decorate Chinatown in Sydney, blues and light blues and whites and yellows. It's something that, from what I've been told, that it's representative of death. So, is it really a representation of what's the death of the economy that's about to hit us, the troubles that we're about to head into? Are we going to have more yin than yang in 2022? And we got to watch out for those. Those ominous signs. I mean, the Westpac are already saying today that the fixed rates are going to rise. So, look, the wrong colours. Unfortunately, that's what the Asian community are saying. The WeChat chatters are saying it's the wrong colours. It's really the colours that are representative of death. They should have kept on going with the traditional gold and red.
That's right. But mind you, of course, a lot of the WeChat chatters are away at the minute because of the New Year holidays.
Yeah, look, there's obviously there's a lot of the holidays, and there's a lot of censoring going on because of the Beijing Olympics. So yeah, they're on go slow or very very slow pace, and very little information coming out other than who's winning what gold and who's come second and who's perhaps cheated, who's tripped who over the before they got to the finish line. I don't know. I don't watch the Olympics sports. It's too dangerous to watch. It's just too dangerous.
Did you see that they ran out of mascots and things, right? So they didn't produce enough. So there was a shortage of Olympic mascots.
No, I didn't.
Saw that today. So I wonder whether that's more supply chain problems.
Well, yeah. Well, they've got issues themselves. They've got base material issues themselves, and they perhaps couldn't put them together. Let's not forget that there's a lot of industries, there's a lot of manufacturing plants over there that have shut down, or they went home early. If you recall our chat from a few weeks back, earlier in the year, a lot of them just shut down early and just said, listen, typically they get a 2-week holiday, but basically said, look, take a 2-month holiday because we really we can't afford you. So it's not that they get sacked, it's not that they get put off, because you can't say those things over there in China. You basically get laid to the side and just wait until they call you call you back to work if the manufacturing plant opens up again. Yeah, they're in all sorts of bother, and this is where one has to really consider where we're going in 2022 with regards to the Russia and China's relationship, and the issues, the rumors of war and other issues happening around the globe. It's very, very ominous. So again. Were those colours chosen on purpose? Are they a sign of what's to come? And are they a sign more than anything as to what the property pundits and experts and the property aficionados are looking into in Sydney for 2022?
Well, maybe they were just colourblind. You never know. Well, let's flick over then and look at some of the recent articles. There's one here which is a doozy, isn't it? Talking specifically about the problem of moving from an apartment to a house in and around Sydney.
Well, look, is it an article that you and I could say, we told you so? It's really just a reflection of what we've been saying for how long, Martin? Since the beginning of this pandemic, we said that back in 2020, that early 2020, January January, February 2020, we said that there was going to be a big chasm between apartment prices and home prices because of the natural shift and the demographic shift towards open space and lifestyle and changes. And that's going to continue. And I'm a believer that that's going to get broader. That chasm's going to get broader and deeper because of the what we know is coming, and that is the bigger supply on market supply of apartments. So obviously we're going to have a lot more supply on market. We already are seeing signs of that, although it's not as that obvious to the general public at the moment. But from what our WeChat chatterers have been telling us, from what our local WeChat chatterers have informed us, investors that we talk with, people that we know, they're really offloading apartments. And so in all these new developments that are coming online, so it's a supply and demand. There's going to be a huge amount of supply, and the demand is going to weaken. But the government have got a remedy, Martin. They've got a remedy, and that's something that we're going to touch on a little bit later on as well.
Absolutely. Well, of course, the government is going to publish its latest housing affordability report, right, which is completely myopically centred because it's only looking at the supply side issues. And I can tell you what the report will say. It will blame the states. It'll blame the states for not building enough properties, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, the federal government said nothing to do with us. As, of course, Scott Morrison the other day said, house prices isn't something I can control. So it's very interesting if you think about that just for a second, right? Morrison is saying nothing to do with the government, house prices, right? The RBA says nothing to do with us, right? APRA says nothing to do with us. So my question to you, Edwin, is so who is responsible for the momentum in house prices then? If those guys are just walking away and say it's somebody else's responsibility.
Look, it's all the the wombats. Let's just blame the wombats. Now let's blame the possums that have been eating my bok choy leaves.
Well, that's got to be something. The point is, of course, that none of those entities want to actually take accountability for the things that they've done and the policies they've set, and the fact that they've actually had lending too loose and interest rates too low for a long, long time. None of them want to take any responsibility for that, so they're going to point fingers at everybody else, the states, migration, whatever it is, right? But, of course, we know the truth. They're responsible for this mess that we're in.
Historically, you can go back and again, this is where I get berated and all the DMs start flowing in and I start getting accused of all sorts of stuff. I mean, I can pinpoint times, in terms of years where the different governments, the Labor government, the Liberal government, have changed certain policies that just made it a shambles and made it harder and harder for the locals to afford something that was substantive when it came to ownership of a home. I'm not talking about investment properties. I'm talking about a home, a principal place of residence where you could bring up your young family, or you could find peace and enjoyment and enjoy the lifestyle. But obviously, too many politicians, as you and I know, over the decades, have just themselves are investors. I like to know how many politicians don't have investment properties, because when you start looking at all the politicians that have investment properties, well, then you realize that they've got to, in order for them to be successful with their investment portfolios, they've got to make up these policies that is also going to benefit them. And I'm talking about both parties. I'm talking about just about every politician and a lot of the independents as well that push for these lax policies that don't look after the general public but look after themselves. Look, we could go on and look at what's happening now, where things are starting to ease and things are starting to slow down. And the article that I sent to you earlier today, with when we were going to talk about, was tourists could return to Australia within weeks. With international borders poised to reopen, and then soon after that, then there's the announcement that come February 21, the visa holders will be able to return to Australia. In other words, the international borders will open up. February 21. As long as you're double jabbed, you can come in. And how many people have been waiting? How long have we been talking about the amount of people that have already that are holding PR visas in the high net worth individuals and positions in industries and professions that are waiting and be waiting for the international borders to lift in order to come in. So really, is this strategically to save the property market, save the apartment market that's lagging? Do the politicians think that the new people that are going to come in, are they going to be buying these dog boxes in the hubs? I don't believe so. I believe the ones that are going to come in and they're going to be buying freestanding homes, and it's going to put a lot more pressure on the outskirts of Sydney as prices continue to rise, unless the listing numbers really tick up.
Yeah, well, we might touch on what numbers just a little bit later. But before we go there, it is just worth playing that little clip that that you put up. I managed to grab it off Twitter, right? I'm not sure whether I agree with your comment, but it's quite an amusing clip.
Oh, well, look, it's you can only imagine all the people. Look, let's face it. There are a lot of people that would want to come into Australia, students. That don't forget, there was the announcements not too far back, where the students were able to work up to 38 hours or so. They were allowed to work if people came in with student visas.
Yep.
And they could participate in work, when previously they were only able to participate up to about 16 hours or so. Don't quote me on this, but it's the amount of hours that they can participate in terms of working hours whilst they're studying is just basically giving them a full-time wage as well. So you don't have to be Einstein to figure out that a lot of the people that are going to be coming from all over the world, they're not going to be coming to necessarily to study. That's going to be the premise, but the real reason is going to be really to be able to work, because if you're allowed to legally work 40 hours a week, that's actually a full-time job, isn't it?
Well, it was last time I looked at Edwin. Mind you, I probably work more hours a week now, but I'm just nuts. But there you go. That's just the way it is. But no, it is interesting. And of course, the side hustle for people coming, particularly students, is to gain access to Australia and ultimately to become an Australian resident, right? It's not really just about the education.
No, that's right. There's obviously a lot of things that they have to navigate through, and that's for starters, if you're looking at let's say you're looking at Chinese, there's a lot of interest from Chinese students that they've already obtained a degree, and they're basically wanting to come over to do a master's and be able to work. But the first and foremost, the premise is not necessarily to get a further degree or the masters, but it's really to get a well-paying job. And a lot of these students are very fluent in English, as well as in Mandarin, and some in both Mandarin and Cantonese. So they are sought after when it comes to different professions or different companies here in Australia, because of the nature of the business dealing with the Asian community. So they're looking, but it also comes back to how many these is China going to allow to come over as well? How many planes are they are able to leave China and all? So I'd say that people that are looking to get into the market, first-time buyers that are looking to get into the market, are trying to take advantage of the amount of numbers that are listing numbers that are coming on market in Sydney. There's a small window to push for a better deal than what it's going to be in about 6 months' time or towards the end of the year. So I don't doubt whatsoever what what our friend Christopher Joy says, that potentially there's going to be a rise in property prices, but I would say be more specific to home prices as opposed to apartments. If the numbers don't come on market, they don't track on market as well as what they have been so far. if that stops or slows down, well, then there's going to be pressure for first-time home buyers wanting to get into the market and buy a home here in Sydney, because of the pressures from the international borders opening up. Obviously, the students coming in and taking up the rental properties once again, but it's going to be it's not going to be at a fast pace, because there's still a lot of loose ends with regards to obviously migration, loose ends with regards to transportation. What's really going to happen? We can only imagine the issues that the Border Patrol Force are going to have. Are they going to be tested on the way in? Are they going to have to show are they going to have RATS tests at the airport? All these things need to be put in place. But so there's a small window. But look, I'm confident that we're going to see greater listings on market. That's going to give that opportunity for the local buyers to come into the market at a reasonable price, more reasonable than what it could potentially end up being in about 6 months' time.
Well, it's interesting. Christopher Joy's article in the AFR, the title was "The Future of House Prices is in the RBA hands." So he thinks the RBA is basically pulling the lever, and that's what I would say as well. But he's also saying that there might be a small rise in the short term, but ultimately prices are likely to fall 15 to 25% after the cash rate hikes. And, there is a sensitivity to interest rates, which, of course, is in the RBA modelling. It's in my modelling too, which essentially says if rates go up, prices go down. So we are, I think, at a very important inflection point. And, last year prices went through the roof dramatically because rates were cut very hard and the lending standards were very loose. That's beginning to reverse now, and rates look as though they will rise. And so quite likely we are going to see property prices fall. But your point is exactly right. Differentially, movements will be very, very different for apartments and houses, out from certain areas, and certainly not the off the plan and the new stuff in the urban fringe, but the ones closer in where there is huge demand and probably even rising demand now. So again, these high level indicators of movements of price aren't very helpful. NAB came out the other day and said, well, yeah, we think there could be a fall, 10% or something. Average is mask, right? You have to go much more granular to really understand what's going to happen.
Well, definitely. And when you start talking these sort of figures that Christopher Joy talks about, drops of 15 to 25 percent, and it's a blanket, statement. There again, I'm one to also revert back to your commentary, and that is in previous podcasts where we talk about you have to be granular and specific to certain suburbs and the appetites, and there's a lot more going on and the demographics and what happens. Look, what happens over in America, what happens over in Canada, what happens in China, what happens overseas will affect your neighborhood one way or another. And a lot of people don't realize that. And look, I also reverse that, and I say because a lot of agents don't understand outside, don't understand what's happening outside of their own territory. That can also undersell property, and we take advantage of that. But if you're going to be buying, obviously you have to adopt a more microscopic look at things and be more granular, because in the type of house, why would you go with a type of house? Why would you go with this floor plan? Or there's so much more involved, and there's so much more moving forward that's going to be involved when buying a property, because there's a lot more decisions that will need to be made moving forward, particularly if things start heating up with discussions with regards to more rumors of war and potential skirmishes, and what's that's going to happen to supply chain issues and so on and so on. So for the mainstream to put out these blanket statements is what you and I find it very comical at times, because they're not looking at it from a microscopic look or a granular approach. But you know what, Martin? This is great for for potential home buyers, especially ones that are looking to the first home buyers. I think these articles are great because the main a lot of the agents, not all, but a lot of the agents and a lot of the general population read this and they start panicking. And this is why I'm hoping that in the next few weeks we're going to get a hell of a lot more listings on market, which we are already tracking a lot higher than what 12 to 13% higher in terms of numbers for homes on market than what we were this time last year.
Well, we'll come on to the numbers in just a second. Just before we do that, another factor, of course, is rates rises. And you mentioned Westpac is going to announce some more rate hikes probably later in the week. The results from Westpac's, financial performance for the last little period that was reported very recently showed huge margin compression. So they have to find a way of lifting their rates to be able to safeguard their profitability. So as well as the market dynamic, there is also the question of the bank's profit dynamic. And it seems to me that most of the banks are going to be caught with a need to put the rates up out of cycle of whatever the RBA does, simply to try and maintain the profitability of their business. Because, of course, they can't possibly let their shareholders take any of the hit, can they? So another reason why, of course, if rates go up, prices come down. And let's go on to numbers because, of course, we've got some statistics, haven't we?
Yes, we've got our statistics. And, at our follower, Punk16, for those that you want to follow, he puts out some great info. Look, his observation of the Northwest region is really on par with what's happening all around in other parts of Sydney as well. Although numbers have been moving and numbers have been selling, I think out of the ones that he observed, 9 out of the 12 or so that he went to observe actually got sold. But he puts out some great information as to what happened and the participation rate of bidders and who was participating. Tom Panos also, in this segment statistics. Tom Panos, as an industry commentator, an influencer, local industry commentator and influencer. He also writes in one of his tweets for after the Saturday auctions. He writes the real estate market has gone from nuts to normal. Let's not forget that the tweet that he put out last week, where none of his auctions that he participated in were sold. Now he's talking about going from nuts to normal. Last week I said that Tom generally does anywhere between on average around 12 auctions a week, and lo and behold, this is what he's talking about today. My clearance rate today was 9 out of 12 sold. Now, when he talks about from nuts to normal, he's talking about the simple fact that vendors and agents have had to adjust the on-day acceptance of offers. In other words, they have to adjust the reserve, and they have to really crunch the vendors. Put pressure on the vendors to say, hey, listen, we might have told you a little Furby 4 weeks ago. We might have told you that you could get 2.5 million for your home, but this is on the day. This is we're at 2.2, and the market's dictating the price. So they start putting pressure on the vendors on the day. So what my understanding as to what's been happening around the different areas of Sydney, the agencies and agents that I've been talking to and our team, we've seen that there's a lot of adjustment downward for on the day reserves so that properties can get sold. And obviously then there's the fear of interest rate rises, less more property on the market, less buyers, and all sorts of things that obviously will start working in favour of the buyers and not the vendors. Avid in his Avid commentator in his weekly tweet with regards to auction clearance rates, he notes it down that Sydney's went upwards, up to 52.9, but still down on same time last year's figures. So that was from statistics, and obviously, Martin, Dusty and I attended our first auction for 2022, and it was rather interesting.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, it was it in the rain or was it dry?
Oh, it was nice and sunny. It was sunny. It was dry. It was had all the ambience, the atmosphere. A lot of people there, but three registered bidders, and but because we knew a bit more of what was happening, the inside story and with regards to the property, we just played it, played our strategy on the day. Bottom line was the property was being marketed at 1.75, thereabouts 1.75 to 1.8. The reserve on the day was set at 1.85. The highest bid on the day was 1.65, and there was only two bids, and he got passed in. So because there was too big a gap between the reserve and obviously the last bid, and as much as there was a lot of pressure being placed on the potential bidders, the agents were running frantic, the vendors were pulling their hair out. But this is what's happened, and again, it goes back to what Tom was saying in his podcast, in his tweets, and also what our friend Punkett 16 is finding in the auctions that he attends in the Northwest as well. So there's a lot of adjustment downward for at auctions on the day. Not as much participation as before Christmas last year. And I'd say that if numbers continue to track upwards, we're going to see more and more pressure. Although the narrative is going to be that auction clearance rates are still relatively normal or high. There's still a lot of fanfare about that. But what they don't necessarily talk about is the adjustment downwards of prices in order to get them sold on the date, because people are more fearful of interest rate rises and therefore less buyers on market than they are of the Krong. So obviously, and that's why we're seeing a lot of numbers come on market.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the numbers now then. So more than 15,000 properties on sale in the news in Sydney at the moment, in the Sydney region.
That's right. And we're for a Monday, I looked at the numbers this morning, and I tracked them at the house numbers were at 6,422. And if you do a search on Domain now, and you'd find that those numbers have gone up. And that's on a Monday. Typically on a Monday and on the Tuesday till about lunchtime, numbers tend to track downward from Friday's numbers, because obviously all the auction listings that got sold get taken off the back end, and the post-auction negotiations continue up until Monday, Sunday, and Monday, and you get more numbers coming off. So what we're also noticing is longer days on market for a lot of properties. Properties that would otherwise have gone to auction are getting pulled away earlier, or before auction, because there's not a lot of participation. So this trend moving forward is going to be beneficial for the buyers that are wanting to come in the market. And again, I say it's going to be beneficial for the buyers to come on the market if they continue to track upward. Let's not forget that when we started getting into winter last year, up until August of last year, mid-August of last year, we ended up with less than 5,000. I think it was 4,964 homes listed for sale in the Sydney region. So right now, if these numbers continue to rise, you can see the difference there. And I'm hoping that they will continue to rise over over winter, because otherwise, with the international borders being open, we're going to get pressure. We're going to, things potentially could start tracking upwards. And I dare say, Martin, I know, I may be, call it pessimistic in a way, but I dare say that let's not forget that if the numbers don't track upward, and we get a lot of these international players coming into the market, let's not forget that they're not that interested. Then it's not going to really affect them if interest rates go rise another 25, 50, 75, 100 basis points, even if they rose this year or next year, it's not really going to affect them that much, because their the LVR, the loan to value ratio that they're or the money that they're borrowing is generally around 40 to 50% maximum. And so a rise of 100 points is really not going to mean a lot to them. The unfortunate thing is it's going to mean a hell of a lot to our local buyers, which is, whether you and I keep on saying the government has simply dropped the ball in looking after the best interest of the Aussie families.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's very, very clear. And, there are these schemes now being suggested by some commercial operations to try and actually change the model so you don't have to actually put the deposit in. So basically you pay a little bit and you sort of rent the property until you've actually got enough deposit to buy it later, right? But all of that's not solving anything. All that is doing is just continuing the same momentum, the same stupidity, and just putting property further and further out of reach for people in the future. We need a much more radical approach to really try and deal with the underlying issues, rather than just getting over the next election. But of course, none of the political parties wants to do anything radical, because of course they don't want to have anything that might rock the boat ahead of the election, which of course is this year now. So yeah, expect more stupidity for quite some time.
That's right. But wasn't there a fellow from WA that they got jailed for the rent to buy scheme? And doesn't that sound familiar? What they're trying to do now, and all of a sudden now it's accepted. Does that mean that they're going to let him out of jail? This fellow from WA, they're going to let him out because now it's going to be an accepted thing. It's this, like you and I say, it's this ad hoc, revision mirror style fixes that the government tried to implement. It's only going to continue to push prices upward. The land envelopes are only going to get smaller. What we used to, what you used to buy, like in the 650 blocks or the 700 square meter blocks, now down to 280, and only going to get smaller to 230. And you have this, you're basically living in a townhouse that's fenced up, and you're calling it a home. It's no longer under strata title; it's now under private treaty, because you've got 3 fences around it. So all they are is just getting smaller and smaller, and costlier and costlier because of the policies that the government put in place. You and I have said, and I wrote an article in 2014, 2015. I can't remember what magazine it was for, and I spoke then about the cost between the stamp, the duties and taxes that builders and developers pay after the purchase of the land to finish construction and on sell and the property being on sold. And it's stupid, the amount of money that they pay. If you were only to reduce that and make it more, then it would become more affordable, rather than giving money to people or creating these schemes to make it easier for people to come in. Because when you create these schemes, all it does is puts more money in the hands of the developers and the construction industry, the real estate industry, and does nothing other than make it more unaffordable for first-time home buyers or people wanting to get into the market. That's the stupidity of it. Anyway, again, it's another topic for another day, and we could talk till the cows come home.
Exactly. It's going to be a large herd of cows in my back garden if we're going like this, Edwin. It's just worth saying, of course, that next week the auction stats look as though there's going to be even more listings, right? But it'll be interesting to see what the clearance rates are next week.
Yeah, well, look, it's again, it shows the confidence that people are having, and it looks like there's, as I said, we were going to be looking at the auction numbers as well, because that was going to be the level of confidence that vendors were going to have. So this is a good thing. It's a good thing in my view, albeit I call it sale by underquoting, but it's a good thing because it's a good monitor. For me, it monitors the people's willingness to put the properties on the market, and I only hope that those numbers get higher and higher again, because it then means that it's it's more attractive, or becomes a better position for the buyer in a sense, because they'll have a lot more choice. So that's why I'm hoping that these numbers also, sale by underquoting rises as well. And let it get to 2,000. Let's go all the way.
Absolutely. Well, tip of the week, interesting one this today.
Yeah, look, if you look at the tweet that I referred to, the first auction for right there, the first auction for 2022 for me and Dusty. If you look at the whole thread, and there's some interesting commentary in that thread, and this is where I got the tip of the week. And I know you and I have spoken about it before, but it's just don't bid against yourself. In one of the comments there in the Twitter thread there, somebody on bid against himself 4 or 5 times. If there's nobody else that's going to be, you just hold the line. Just hold it. If you hold in the last bid, just sit there. The auctioneers will push and will push and will push. The agents will badger you and they say it's almost on the market. They'll come up to your ear, one on one ear and the other one on the other ear, and they'll say, look, the other guys ran out of money. If you give it a little bit more, we'll drop the hammer. But they don't. Just hold on. You've got the last bid. Why bid against yourself? Not only once, but doing it 4 and 5 times. It's crazy stuff.
And the point there, Edwin, isn't it, that if in fact it is passed in and you hold the last bid, you get the first chance to have a conversation.
That's right. You get the first chance to have a conversation. But even if you're not the last bid, that's you're still, if it's not sold, if it's not negotiated, if you don't have the meeting of the minds post that. And generally what happens when there's a lot of properties that get passed in on market, you generally look, the better time to buy is when they go into a private treaty scenario anyway. So, go after the day of the auction. So when you go into a private treaty scenario, and generally, if it becomes that a stalemate, then you got to start thinking to yourself, am I really overpaying, for this? Look, there obviously each property has its strategy. Each auction scenario has its own strategy, but oftentimes in the past, I would say a good 40% of the times, we've bought properties post auction under the private treaty, and we haven't even participated at the auction. And there are reasons. People walk away, people get angry. So just hold the line. You do have the first, the first right of refusal on the day. And if there's no meeting of the minds, well, then obviously, if it's not what you want to pay and you're happy to walk away. And there's, so far the numbers are tracking upwards.
Absolutely. Well, as I always say, Edwin, at this point, remember, folks, there's always more property around the corner.
Yeah, that's right. And there could be more surprises around the corner as well. And if more banks start following Westpac's tune, look, we'll know for sure if this Chinese whisper materializes on Thursday. And as you know, one goes off, others will follow. And that's going to spook the vendors a little bit more, and we will end up with more on market before the international arrivals come in. I think we've got about 2 to 3 months before the international parties start really coming in to make a notable difference in the market.
Okay, so folks, do your due diligence, don't get sucked along, and play smart. That's the message, isn't it? Play smart.
Yeah. That's it, Martin. And look, and if you are going to buy something in the metaverse, please go get yourself somebody that's going to check that strata report if you're going to buy a penthouse.
Yeah. So is that a virtual report, or do you? I don't know how it works. Very interesting, Edwin. You've set the cats running again.
They've gone to sleep.
Thanks for your time, everyone, once again, and we'll do it all again next week, hey?
Definitely, Martin.
Okay, take care. Cheers. Bye.